you're wondering why she's still here, it's because this and the last two Wait a minute, no. I changed this to be the first one of the series. Damn it, this is gonna ruin everything. Anyway, if you're confused about what's going on here, don't worry. We're talking about block, which will make this whole intro seem sensible in comparison. Okay, so for those who don't know how attacking works, when something attacks you, the game rolls some numbers in sequence to decide if and how much damage you take. Parry and hit rate decide if you get hit at all, and if it misses, there's no damage. No chance for on-hit effects like stun or poison, nothing. But when you do get hit, you go through all the funny little damage math we're not going to talk about here, and then you roll a d80 and check it against your block rate to see if you blocked it. If you did, you only take 20% damage, or 30% if it's PvP. Oh, yeah, I did say d80, which brings us to this chart. Which means you have to multiply your block rate on your character window by 1.25 to get your actual block rate. Except not really. Turns out there's this funny mechanic called variable block, showing your block rate is up to 10% higher than it actually is. And the issue with variable block is that it's a check against the mob's dex and your dex. See the problem here? The character window doesn't adjust for what mob is attacking you. From what I can tell, it actually assumes the mob you're up against has around 23 dex, which is true if all you ever fight is a brooding. I'm gonna be generous. Assume you're fighting those for all of maybe 5 minutes before you move on. So now what? Fortunately, dex is kind of an all or nothing stat for most people. So you're either an AoE blade or ranger who always has more than enough dex to get the full 10% from variable block, or you're not, and you're just down 10% from what your character sheet says. Which is also an incorrect assumption. So, what's the issue? Well, against a mob with 23 dex, your variable block doesn't cap until you have 90 dex. So, you have somewhere between 0 and 10% less block than what the character sheet says. Which brings us to the big question. How much block do you actually have then? Well, let's put it all together and go step by step. Let's start with variable block, since I just mentioned it. See that player dex minus mob dex on the right? That's usually going to be a negative number, but fortunately there's a floor of 0. Or I guess to put it another way, if there was no floor, variable block could easily mean you could be down 20% or more block than what the character window says. This whole section basically means the higher the attacker's dex, the less you need to beat it by to max out your variable block. Here's the extreme end where if the attacker has 4000 dex, you only needed to beat it by 1 to max it. Of course, at that point, you won't even need variable block. Oh, and one last important thing I need to call out here. Dungeon mobs' dex scales with their target's level for the sake of this specific calculation, so don't just blindly trust the dex value you see on Flyfipedia. And then we have class block, or as others call it, block scaling with dex. You can find the class block factors on Flyfipedia, but also I can just move the formula around like so, and you can instead see it like this chart here. We add all the things we talked about up to this point, plus any percent block from your gear and buffs like shield bonus and cat's reflex, and that's the block your character has, which we'll call character block, because so far we've mostly only talked about you, the defender. There is one last major element to block that isn't from your character called block penetration. For PvE, the only source of block penetration you have to worry about is giants who have 50%. Or to put it another way, if you want to have max block against giants, your character block needs to add up to 150%. PvP does complicate it a little more because different players run different setups. But basically what this little bit of math here says is your block is reduced by their block penetration percent against that specific player. Or to simplify, I'll just list relevant values here. Worth noting, this does mean that if rangers ever reach 100% block penetration, all the block gear you have will be worth 0%. Finally, we put all this together and multiply by 1.25 to see what percent of hits you're actually blocking. And here you have the much simpler block formula for mobs. Wait, that's it? There's not even debuffs here, so stuff like armor penetrate won't even reduce your block rate. Not that anyone was using that skill to begin with, but... Also, they have a different block cap and floor for whatever reason. Not that any of them hit the cap. The floor is 6%, so the first mob to have more block than the minimum is a regular Mushboy with 7%. The highest is a Bishop Hopcrank with 30%. Joy. No wonder no one likes the desert. But hey, Asriel and beyond, everything goes right back down to the minimum. I guess it's worth calling out the block rate of dungeon mobs goes down for you the higher your level. So that's one thing that's made sense in this video. Okay, even I'll admit that was a lot to process, and if I'm being honest, most of that info would have flown over my head. So here I made this really nice chart so you can make sense of it all without opening an Excel sheet. Non-ranger in-game builds will have one of the following dex values. For these, you can actually just look at your character sheet and adjust your block accordingly to get your character block. I do realize that leveling characters generally have less than 63 dex, but fortunately that just means their block rate isn't off by much. Maybe 3% at most, compared to what their character sheet says, so I don't really feel the need to include it here. One last point before I finish up. In certain situations, usually low-level Master Quest, you'll notice you take more than 20% of the normal damage on blocked hits. If that's happening to you, it means you have a lot of defense, and the game is enforcing the minimum damage, which is 10% of the mob's attack. And with that covered, I should probably rest her, shouldn't I? Really?